Good evening, I'm an Australian living here in beautiful Minsk, Belarus, and it's the capital, and I'm pretty close to the city centre. It's 10:30 at night and I'm walking home, and there's lots of people walking around. There's a couple of young girls here in front of me. It's like a mother-daughter just here, or maybe two ladies. There's some other people up here, there's some other people up here. Guess what? There's a casino. Guess what? It's super safe. Like literally, I could walk down here at any time of the day and nothing's going to happen, mate. Nothing is going to happen. There's going to be no pickpockets, no random attacks, no stabbings, no shootings, no anything. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. I just had dinner with three friends who are expats. And one of them, I won't give the details too much, but has been in a European country with his Belarusian wife. He's a foreigner. And she had the typical, Belarusian thing of assuming that Europe is so much better and Belarus is a shithole. This is very, very standard, implanted, ideological idea, right? So I know the camera's a little bit dark, but I'll keep it rolling anyway. As I walk through under here, under some trees. And 2 months in this country, with all of the problems, visual and in your face, she was pretty close to getting raped at one stage. Again, I won't say where she was, but yeah, make your own ideas up if you wish. And she's like, fuck this, let's go back to Belarus. I never want to leave Belarus again. Kind of interesting to see that, and she's not alone, although a lot of people don't share that view. But interesting, my mate's girlfriend was saying this. She wasn't there, but he was relaying the story. You can see here, girl, whatever, just walking. There's no concept of fighting or attacking or raping or anything. There's just no concept of it. There's no concept. It doesn't exist here. I'm not exaggerating, by the way. Yes, I have been drinking, I confess that, but I'm not exaggerating. I promise. Pinky square. So yeah, Belarus is just remarkably safe, I have to say. If you really... look, I'm from Australia. Australia is still fairly safe for the most part. I mean, you wouldn't... you got to be street smart on some level in Melbourne. You got to, in the city centre after a certain time, stuff can happen. Probably won't, let's be realistic, right? But it can. Even some of the commuter hubs throughout Melbourne, absolutely it can. Would you want to be walking around every part of Melbourne this time of night with your phone in your hand, speaking shit like me? Probably not. Although, the chance of something happening in day-to-day life is low, right? Like, it's still kind of safe, but it's like you got to be careful safe. You know what I mean? It's not like Honduras or something where you just fucking whatever. It's safe, but you got to make it safe by behaving and going into certain places at certain times and avoiding other places at certain times, right? Whereas Minsk, not so. Walk wherever the fuck you want, whenever the fuck you want, and absolutely nothing will happen. It's just how it is. I don't know where it ranks in terms of global safety. I mean, this kind of data is kind of tricky to obtain and to get it accurately, but clearly it's up there with some smaller nation states that are effectively like villages on islands and this kind of stuff. Obviously bigger, more notable places like Singapore and Japan are two that are known to being very safe. More famous city-state, nation-state respectively. These are very safe places as general rules, which is hard to do. I mean, it's hard to be a country of Japan about 110 million, I think, and still be pretty safe. It's hard to do, right? But here we are. It's another world in a sense. But as I say, look, I mean, a country like Australia is not that dangerous. Let's be realistic, but there are certain rules that you live by to minimise risk, right? Here, there are no rules. So there it is, folks. Not even in consideration, because I was actually, during COVID, So when I had to come back to Australia, because I was shutting the borders in, must have been April of 2020, I lived in the city centre, right? Because the city centre in Melbourne is full of really tall apartment blocks with a lot of foreigners living in them. So foreigners weren't home, and these apartment blocks were empty. Like, you just had 40-level apartment blocks with like 2 lights on the whole building. So several mates and I thought, well, let's get together and get a big one together. Let's have fun for the COVID time. So we did that. Oh, let's get a bit of focus there. It's hard to focus. But man, it was pretty rough, the Melbourne city centre, after a certain time. It's pretty rough. With homeless, mental health shit going on. Remember one time I used to go for walks like 7 in the morning, just because, like, what the fuck else do you do? And I remember one time this lady was just literally taking a shit and pissing at the same time in the middle of the street on Latrobe Street. For those who know it, that part where you kind of Melbourne Central crosses over. There's like an overhead walkway there. 7 in the morning, she's taking a dump piss combo on the footpath. That's not happening here. That is not happening here. A prize to the first person who guesses where I'm near, by the way. So yeah, I thought I'd just whip out the phone and share this, because I'm going to nick off for a bit next week, and will not come back for a few months. So I'm making videos while I can. And we'll just had this topic tonight of, as I say, my friend's girlfriend, and these kids running around, safe as anything. Yeah, his girlfriend, who really wanted to get out of Belarus, and then within 2 months, she's pretty much begging to go back. It's kind of funny. Again, not all Belarusians think like this. Like, I've met a handful of Belarusians who've been outside for long periods of time and came back because they chose to, not just their visa run out, or their arrangement ran out. I think. Mostly they go and never come back. That's the reality. But I mean, it's hard when you've got such an ideology. Whatever you find outside, like, it has to be so much worse than Belarus to even consider changing your ideology, right? Because, as I say, it's almost moralistic here to be embarrassed of it being Belarus, and wanting to leave because everywhere's so much better and Belarus is horrible, which is retarded, because Belarus ranks highly on a lot of things. Incomes, like, it's ranked, I think, about 70th out of 221 countries almost. So it's in like the top third of income, real income, around the world, and then totally safe and blah blah blah. But they just only compare Belarus to their fantasy version of Germany or America, essentially. But anyway, I mean, most people would take, a 2 or 3 times increase in real living standards for a bit of crime, right? I mean, it's probably a reasonable trade-off to make, depending exactly where you want to go for that crime. As I say, I mean, Australia's, well, it depends where you are. But it's not the United States, you know what I mean? So I've never been around the market at night time. There's a seasonal market. Cow. Здравствуйте. More people just kind of walking around. I'll get on the metro. And it's quite handy if you do kind of dedicate yourself a bit to trying to catch a few taxis as you can. I still do catch them, but you get a lot of exercise, man. It's hard to chub up. You can see, the social pressure here to stay slim, but it's pretty natural too. Like, even then, the reasonably fancy restaurant I was just eating at, they tell you the gram size of what you're eating. So I had a whatever, and it's 150/120/30, right? So the meat's this much, the vegetables this much. You know how much you're eating, the grams of what you're eating. It's unbelievable. In the US or Australia, whatever, you just don't get that, right? They just don't think that way. You just keep eating, right? And I noticed this too. My mate's got like for 2 dinners, and I'm just like, fuck, look at my meal compared to this. But as a general rule, I mean, you're eating Belarusian portions, and you're walking a lot. It's fantastic. At least, while it's still warm. It's the tail end of summer now, but there's Coffix. You'll no doubt know this place. It's certainly a lot safer than Russia. Russia's kind of like more like a Western country when it comes to this kind of basic street crime stuff. You do get a lot more variability. that chance, especially late at night, you can get into a fight with somebody who's really drunk and being a fuckhead. Even though most Russians are quite civil, quite well behaved, to be fair, but you do get that one every now and then that will be a pain in the ass. Whereas in Belarus, you don't really get that. Even like kind of more homeless drunk dude types, of which are generally cleared out of view in Minsk. But when you go to second tiers, you'll bump into this kind of guy who's kind of, on the wrong side of the hill, so to speak, age-wise, and is kind of drunk. Even they're still quite polite in asking for a ruble. So I thought I'd just share that idea of Belarus being a very safe place, very homely place. And I see, there's all this politics at the moment of Europe being unsafe because of excessive importation of military-aged men from incompatible cultures, blah, blah, blah. And look, it might be true, and it probably is to some extent. I'm not one to agree or disagree with this. I haven't been there to see it, so I'm not inclined to have an opinion, but this is certainly a familiar theme of what Western men who come here talk about. So if that is a genuine concern, certainly under the current regime and the current circumstances, that won't happen here in a hurry. Although the ethnicity is already starting to change here. There's certainly a big increase in foreigners just in the last few months, really. Last 6 months, a lot. Driven a lot by student populations, but also, Arab sex tourists and whatever, this kind of stuff. You're getting a wide range, lots of Chinese coming in as well. But it's certainly done under the guise of this being Belarus, and you step out of line and you're fucked. That's kind of how it is. And foreigners know that. They know not to fuck around because you'll get caught here. The police actually follow up and do their job here. My experience with police in Australia has been mixed. I've had some really good policing efforts and some really lazy ones, quite frankly. So it's kind of been mixed. My personal experiences. Whereas here, every story I've heard, man, these guys are fucking on it. Jesus. And if someone made, long story, but someone I know made a complaint, local girl. She made assumptions about something happening, and then they went and checked it out and nothing was happening. They called her and I was like, what the fuck are you calling us for? Nothing was happening. Why'd you say something was happening? It's not happening. It's kind of funny. Well, funny in that you wouldn't happen in the West. There'd be, no retribution for making a innocent false claim, but still false, still wasting resources. But not maliciously, no malicious intent involved. So foreigners know at this point of proceedings that you don't step the fuck out of line, and everyone knows it, so no one does. And definitely in the local culture, they're not inclined to. They're very peaceful, chilled people, the Belarusians. People tell me it's because they've lived constantly under the control of other regimes their whole existence, which of course every country does essentially. Unless you are the empire, you're controlled by an empire, right? That's kind of how it works. Australia's the same. We're controlled by the US empire, obviously. But I guess here in Europe, everyone's on your doorstep. So maybe you feel it a bit more in this part of the world, given the very cozy physical proximity of countries. Anyway, I thought I'd share that thought with you as I strolled back to the metro to get the metro back to my Dharma. Alright folks, it's been a pleasure. Take it easy. Ciao.